My name is Lorraine, and at 32 years old, I never imagined my husband's family would publicly humiliate me. Growing up with little money taught me resilience, which helped build my successful marketing career. James and I shared what I thought was a loving marriage despite our different backgrounds. When we flew to Hawaii for his sister Cassandra's extravagant wedding, I was nervous but hopeful. I had no idea that in paradise I would discover the ugly truth about my marriage. If you are watching this video, drop a comment letting me know where you are from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this journey of self-discovery. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where luxury meant having enough money for new school clothes each fall. My parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Dad was a factory worker who picked up weekend shifts at the gas station, while Mom cleaned houses and waitressed. They instilled in me the values of hard work, honesty, and treating everyone with respect regardless of their bank account. By 18, I was working full-time while putting myself through community college. Eventually, I earned a scholarship to complete my marketing degree at the State University. Every achievement in my life came through sweat and determination. Nothing was handed to me. I met James Turner at Horizon Marketing Agency 5 years ago. I had just been promoted to account manager after 3 years of proving myself. James joined as our new creative director, transferred from the New York office. With his perfectly tailored suits and confident smile, he stood out immediately. Despite his obvious wealth, he seemed different from other privileged people I had encountered. He valued my ideas and often praised my ability to connect with clients from diverse backgrounds. Our romance began unexpectedly. Late nights working on a difficult campaign led to dinner discussions that stretched beyond work. James listened intently when I shared stories about my upbringing. He seemed fascinated rather than put off by how different our childhoods had been. "Your perspective is so refreshing," he told me one night over dinner. "Everyone in my circle comes from the same background, thinks the same way. You see things differently." When James first took me to dinner at a restaurant where the menu had no prices, I felt completely out of place, but he squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Just order whatever sounds good. You belong here as much as anyone." James came from old money. His family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the country, and his father sat on the boards of several major corporations. James had attended private schools his entire life before graduating from Princeton. Yet somehow, he never made me feel inadequate. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, he proposed with a diamond ring that probably cost more than my parents' house. When I expressed concern about fitting into his world, he brushed it off. "They'll love you because I love you," he assured me. "Besides, you're brilliant and beautiful. What's not to love?" The first meeting with his family should have been my warning sign. We flew to their estate in Connecticut for Thanksgiving. Their house looked like something from a movie with perfectly manicured grounds and staff who called everyone sir and madam. His mother, Elaine, greeted me with an air kiss and a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. His father, William, barely looked up from his newspaper, but it was his sister, Cassandra, who made her disapproval most obvious. "So, you work in marketing. How quaint," she said during dinner, her voice dripping with condescension. "I suppose someone has to do those jobs." James laughed it off. "Cassie Lorraine is actually brilliant at her job. She just landed the Peterson account that everyone has been trying to get for years." "Well, I suppose you have to be good at something," Cassandra replied, with a tight smile. Throughout that weekend, I received countless subtle digs about my clothes, my accent, even the way I held my fork. James defended me occasionally, but more often he seemed oblivious to the undercurrent of classism. "They just need time to get to know you," he said on our flight home. "They can be a bit traditional, but they will come around." Over the next 2 years of our marriage, interactions with James's family remained strained, but tolerable. We usually met on neutral ground, like restaurants, where the brevity of the encounter limited the opportunity for insults. James always insisted they were warming up to me, but I never felt accepted. When the invitation arrived for Cassandra's wedding to Bradley Worthington III, another heir to a fortune, I was surprised to see it was addressed to both of us. The event was to be held at the most exclusive resort in Maui with a week of pre-wedding festivities. "This is our chance," James said excitedly. "A whole week together in paradise. They will finally see how amazing you are." I wanted to believe him. I spent weeks preparing for the trip, buying new clothes that cost more than I was comfortable spending, researching topics that would interest his family, even practicing the proper way to eat difficult foods. I wanted so desperately to fit in, not just for myself, but for James. We selected an expensive crystal vase from their registry, and James suggested we also give them a substantial cash gift. "Let's make it $10,000, he said casually. I nearly choked. That is more than I make in 2 months. We can afford it, he insisted. It will make a good impression. Although it made me uncomfortable, I agreed. I wanted this trip to be different. I wanted to finally bridge the gap between myself and the family I had married into. As our flight to Hawaii approached, my anxiety grew. I had nightmares about showing up in the wrong outfit or using the wrong fork. James assured me repeatedly that everything would be fine, but deep down, I knew this wedding would be a turning point in our relationship one way or another. The moment we stepped off the plane in Maui, the humid air wrapped around us like a warm blanket. Paradise stretched before us with palm trees swaying against a backdrop of azure ocean and volcanic mountains. Under different circumstances, I would have been overjoyed. Our taxi delivered us to the Royal Hibiscus Resort, an exclusive property where rooms started at $1,000 per night. The lobby featured soaring ceilings with intricate wooden beams, enormous arrangements of tropical flowers, and staff who seemed to anticipate needs before they were expressed. "James, darling," a voice rang out as we checked in. His mother, Elaine, glided across the marble floor, looking impossibly elegant in a flowing white outfit. She embraced her son warmly before turning to me with that same practiced smile. "Lorraine, how lovely you could join us." William appeared behind her, clapping James on the shoulder. "Son, you look well. The island air agrees with you already." I received a curt nod from my father-in-law before they whisked James away to discuss some family matter, leaving me to handle the check-in alone. It was a small slight, but it set the tone for what was to come. Our suite was stunning, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean and a private lanai where breakfast would be served each morning. The bathroom was bigger than my first apartment, with a deep soaking tub and shower that could fit 5 people. "This is beautiful," I told James when he finally returned to our room an hour later. "Only the best for Cassandra," he replied, loosening his tie. "The welcome dinner is in 2 hours. Mother says to dress formally." I spent those 2 hours getting ready, applying makeup carefully, and styling my hair. I chose a navy blue cocktail dress that had cost nearly $1,000, more than I had ever spent on a piece of clothing. Looking in the mirror, I felt almost worthy of standing beside James in his world. The welcome dinner was held on the resort's largest terrace overlooking the beach, where the ceremony would take place in 3 days. Tiki torches illuminated tables decorated with orchids and candles. About 100 guests mingled, all dressed impeccably and exuding wealth. Cassandra spotted us immediately. At 34, she was 2 years older than me, but looked younger thanks to whatever expensive treatments she indulged in. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect chignon, and diamonds glittered at her throat and ears. "James," she squealed, kissing both his cheeks. Her eyes slid over me with barely concealed distaste. "Lorraine, that dress is interesting." Before I could respond, she was pulling James away to meet her fiancé's parents, leaving me standing alone. I took a glass of champagne from a passing server and tried to look confident as I surveyed the crowd. Most of the guests seemed to know each other. They formed tight circles, laughing at inside jokes and discussing their latest vacations or business ventures. Whenever I approached a group, the conversation would falter, and I would receive polite but dismissive smiles. I finally found a place to sit at a table with some of Bradley's cousins. They made minimal effort to include me in their conversation about their recent skiing trip to the Alps. I contributed when I could, but mostly sipped my champagne and wished James would return. He reappeared nearly an hour later, flushed with alcohol and good humor. "There you are, having fun?" "Not really," I admitted quietly. "No one is talking to me." He frowned briefly before his expression brightened again. "You just need to make more of an effort. These people appreciate confidence." "I have been making an effort," I protested, but he was already being called away by his father to meet some important business associate. The next morning, a schedule of wedding activities was delivered to our room with breakfast. There was a golf tournament for the men, a spa day for the women, sailing excursions, and various dinners and cocktail parties. "This looks fun," I said, trying to stay positive. James frowned at his schedule. "I need to join Dad and Bradley for golf. All the groomsmen are playing." I will see you at dinner then, I replied, trying to hide my disappointment. The women's spa day should have been relaxing, but instead it became another exercise in exclusion. I arrived at the appointed time to find Cassandra, Elaine, and 15 other women already settled in with cucumber water and fruit plates. "Oh," Cassandra said when she noticed me hovering uncertainly. "We did not have quite enough spots reserved for the full treatment package. You can have a basic massage in the other section." I was led away to a different area of the spa, where I received a 30-minute treatment while the others enjoyed a 4-hour pampering session. Afterward, they all went to lunch together. My invitation was mysteriously lost. This pattern continued throughout the first 2 days. James was constantly pulled away for family obligations or groomsman duties, leaving me to navigate social events alone. When we were together, he seemed distracted and irritable, as if my presence was preventing him from fully enjoying himself. On the third night, the rehearsal dinner was held at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the ocean. When we arrived, I immediately noticed the seating arrangement. James and I were placed at different tables. "There must be a mistake," I said, scanning the place cards. "No mistake," Cassandra replied breezily as she passed by. "James needs to sit with the wedding party, and we needed even numbers at each table. You will be fine at table 7. Table 7, I soon discovered, was positioned near the kitchen door and filled with distant relatives. No one seemed particularly interested in talking to me. James, meanwhile, was seated at the main table, laughing and enjoying himself without a care. After dinner, I pulled him aside. "This is getting ridiculous, James. Your family is deliberately excluding me." "You are being paranoid," he dismissed. "It is just wedding stress making everyone act a little off." "No, it is not. They have been treating me like this since we arrived. Since we met, actually." James ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "What do you want me to do? Cause a scene at my sister's wedding?" "I want you to stand up for me," I replied, fighting back tears. "I want you to act like my husband." He softened slightly, putting his hands on my shoulders. "Look, after the wedding, everything will go back to normal. Just try to get through the next 2 days without making this about you, please, for me." I stared at him, realizing perhaps for the first time that he was not oblivious to his family's treatment of me. He was complicit in it. That night, we went to bed without resolving anything. As James slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake wondering how I had not seen the truth sooner. The man I married was not the person I thought he was. The morning of Cassandra's wedding dawned bright and beautiful. The sky was a perfect blue and gentle waves lapped at the shore. From our balcony, I could see resort staff setting up white chairs on the beach and constructing an elaborate floral arch where the ceremony would take place. Despite the tension from the night before, I was determined to make the best of the day. I spent extra time on my appearance, curling my hair into soft waves and applying my makeup carefully. The dress I had chosen for the wedding was emerald green silk, simple but elegant. It had cost more than my monthly rent, but I wanted to look like I belonged. "You look beautiful," James said when he emerged from the bathroom in his groomsman's tuxedo. For a moment, he seemed like the man I had fallen in love with, appreciative and kind. "Thank you," I replied, allowing myself a moment of hope that perhaps today would be different. James checked his watch. "I need to go join the other groomsmen for photos. The ceremony starts at 4:00, so meet me on the beach a little before then." I nodded, and he kissed me quickly before leaving. With several hours to kill, I decided to explore the resort. I strolled through tropical gardens, visited the shops, and had lunch alone at a beachside cafe. All around me, other wedding guests gathered in groups, enjoying the pre-wedding excitement together while I remained an outsider. At 3:30, I returned to our room to freshen up before heading to the ceremony. I touched up my lipstick, straightened my dress, and gave myself a pep talk in the mirror. "You can do this. It is just a few hours. Be gracious and dignified no matter what." The wedding setup on the beach was stunning. White chairs adorned with orchids and ribbons formed a semicircle facing the ocean. A string quartet played softly as guests began to arrive, all dressed in their finest attire. I scanned the crowd for James, but did not see him among the gathering guests. A young woman with a clipboard and an earpiece, clearly part of the wedding planning team, was directing people to their seats. I approached her with a smile. "Excuse me, I am Lorraine Turner, the groom's sister-in-law. Could you point me to where I should sit? She scanned her clipboard with a frown. Turner, are you with the bride or groom? The groom. I am married to James Turner, the bride's brother. She flipped through several pages. I do not see you listed here for the family section. Let me check with the bride. My stomach tightened as she walked away. A few minutes later, she returned with an apologetic expression. I am sorry, but there seems to be a miscommunication. The family section is full, but we can find you a seat in the general guest area. Before I could respond, Cassandra appeared, looking every bit the perfect bride in a custom designer gown that probably cost as much as a small house. Her expression hardened when she saw me. Is there a problem here? She asked, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. I was just trying to find my seat for the ceremony, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. Cassandra smiled thinly. Oh, Lorraine, I thought James explained. Family members are seated in the front sections. She gestured to the first several rows of chairs where I could see her parents and other relatives already seated. Those areas are reserved for real family. I am family, I said quietly. I am James's wife. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Marriage is just a piece of paper. Lowborn blood is different from ours. Surely you understand that. The wedding coordinator looked mortified, but said nothing. Several nearby guests turned to stare, some with shock, others with barely concealed amusement. And then I saw James standing with the other groomsmen near the altar. Our eyes met briefly, and I waited for him to come to my defense. Instead, he quickly looked away, pretending not to have heard his sister's cruel words. I saw him exchange glances with his father, both of them smirking slightly, as if sharing a private joke at my expense. In that moment, something inside me broke and reformed. A strange calm settled over me as I realized the full extent of the situation. I had spent years trying to gain acceptance from people who had decided long ago that I would never be good enough. I smiled at Cassandra, maintaining every ounce of dignity I could muster. I understand completely, I said, my voice clear and steady despite the turmoil inside. Enjoy your wedding. With that, I turned and walked away, aware of the whispers that followed me. I did not look back at James or any of the Turners. Instead, I held my head high as I made my way across the sand, my heels sinking slightly with each step, making the journey more difficult, but my resolve stronger. Once out of sight of the wedding, I found a secluded spot on a different part of the beach. Only then did I allow the tears to come, hot and fast. It was not just Cassandra's cruelty that hurt, but James's betrayal. He had stood there and let it happen. Worse, he had seemed amused by my humiliation. I sat on the sand, not caring that my expensive dress would be ruined, and watched the waves crash against the shore. The sounds of the ceremony carried faintly on the breeze, the string quartet, the murmur of vows, the applause that signaled the completion of the marriage. With each sound, my heart hardened a little more as I contemplated what to do next. As I sat alone on that beautiful Hawaiian beach, tears streaking my carefully applied makeup, a terrible suspicion began to form in my mind. Something about the extravagant nature of this wedding had been bothering me since we arrived. The venue, the flowers, the gourmet food, the crystal chandeliers imported just for the reception, the fireworks display scheduled for later that night, all of it screamed excessive wealth, even for the Turners. 2 weeks before the trip, James had asked me to transfer money from my personal savings account into our joint account. Just to cover some wedding expenses, he had explained vaguely. I promised Cassandra we would contribute. The amount he requested was $30,000, nearly all of my savings from before our marriage. Money I had scrimped and saved for years, working overtime and weekends, living in a tiny apartment with roommates to build my financial security. That is a lot of money, James, I had protested. What exactly is it for? Just our share of various things, he had replied impatiently. Cassandra wants this to be perfect. Can you just transfer it? We can talk details later. Against my better judgment, I had done as he asked, trusting that my husband would not take advantage of me. Now, sitting on the beach, with sand ruining my silk dress, I pulled out my phone and logged into my banking app. The money had indeed been transferred from our joint account 2 days after I moved it there, but to where? I dug deeper, looking at all recent transactions. What I found made me physically ill. Multiple payments to vendors for Cassandra's wedding, all from our joint account. The flowers, the photographer, the band, half the catering bill, the honeymoon suite for the bride and groom. In total, nearly $40,000, with the additional funds coming from my recent work bonus that I had also deposited into our joint account. With shaking fingers, I scrolled through James's text messages to me from the past few months. Reading them now with fresh eyes, I could see the manipulation, the subtle pressure to contribute our fair share to his sister's special day, the dismissal of my concerns about the cost, the implied promise that this financial gesture would finally win his family's approval. As I sat there processing this betrayal, my phone lit up with a text from James. "Where are you? Ceremony is over. Pictures starting. Mom is asking." No mention of what had happened. No apology, no concern for how I might be feeling after his sister's public humiliation. Just demands for my presence as if nothing had occurred. I did not respond. Instead, I opened my email and found the confirmation emails for all the vendors James had paid from our account. Most contained contact information along with itemized costs. I started taking screenshots, organizing my thoughts. Another text from James. "Seriously, where are you? Stop being dramatic and get back here." The audacity of his message crystallized my decision. I had spent years trying to be good enough for people who had been using me all along, not just for my emotional labor and trying to fit into their world, but literally using my hard-earned money to fund their excesses while simultaneously treating me like dirt. My hands stopped shaking. A strange calm came over me, the kind that comes with absolute certainty. I knew exactly what I needed to do. First, I called my bank. After verifying my identity, I explained the situation in clinical terms. No, I had not authorized these specific expenditures. Yes, I wanted to dispute the charges. No, I did not want to file fraud charges against my husband yet, but I needed the payments stopped immediately if possible. The bank representative was professional and compassionate. "Mrs. Turner, I can place holds on the payments that have not yet cleared. For those that have already processed, we can initiate disputes, but recovery may take time." "Do whatever you can," I replied, "and I need to remove my name from the joint account immediately." Next, I began calling vendors, the florist, the caterer, the band. With each call, I calmly explained that there had been a misunderstanding, that I was withdrawing my financial support for the event. I apologized for the inconvenience, but was firm in my position. Most were understanding once I explained the situation. A few expressed concern about the timing being in the middle of the event, but ultimately acknowledged that they would need to seek the balance of payment from the bride's family. My phone continued to buzz with texts and calls from James, growing increasingly frantic. "Where the hell are you? The photographer is waiting. Mom is furious. Answer your damn phone." I ignored them all as I made my final call to the airline to change my return flight. Instead of leaving with James in 3 days, I booked a seat on a red-eye, departing that night. Just as I finished, a new text came through from James that made my blood boil. "The caterer just called Cassandra saying there is a problem with payment. What did you do?" Only now, when his family's perfect event was threatened, did he connect the dots. Not because he was concerned about me, but because his sister's celebration was being disrupted. I finally responded with a single text. "I paid for my seat at the wedding, but apparently Lowborn money is not good enough for the Turners. I have removed it as requested." Then I turned off my phone, stood up from the beach, and brushed the sand from my ruined dress. It was time to return to the hotel, pack my things, and begin the process of reclaiming my life and my dignity. By the time I reached our hotel room, my phone had died from the constant barrage of incoming calls and messages. I plugged it in, but left it powered off. I needed clarity, without James's voice in my ear making excuses or demands. I packed methodically, separating my belongings from his, taking only what was truly mine. As I folded my clothes into my suitcase, I felt lighter with each item, as if I were shedding the weight of expectations I had been carrying for too long. When the room phone rang, I knew it would be James. I considered ignoring it, but decided it was better to face this head-on. "Hello," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "What the hell have you done?" James shouted, not bothering with a greeting. In the background, I could hear chaos, raised voices, and what sounded like Cassandra crying dramatically. "I have stopped payment on the vendors I personally funded," I replied calmly. "The ones you told me were our gift to your sister." "You cannot do that. The reception is falling apart. The catering staff is threatening to leave, and the band just announced they are packing up in 30 minutes if they do not get paid. That sounds like a problem for the Turner family to solve, I said, since I am not really family according to Cassandra. She did not mean that. You know how she gets when she is stressed. I laughed, the sound hollow, even to my own ears. She meant every word, James, and you stood there and let her say it. You laughed along with your father. I did not laugh, he protested, but the lie was transparent. I saw you, James. I saw everything clearly for the first time today. His tone changed, becoming wheedling. Baby, please. We can talk about this later. Just call the vendors back and tell them it was a misunderstanding. I promise we will work this out. No. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. I will not call them back. I will not pretend everything is okay, and I will not continue to be used by you or your family. There was a pause, and I heard someone, probably William, demanding the phone from James. Lorraine. His father's authoritative voice filled the line. This childish behavior stops now. Whatever petty grievance you have with Cassandra can be addressed later. Right now, you will undo this vindictive stunt. I do not take orders from you, William, I replied, surprised by my own courage. And there is nothing to undo. I simply stopped payment on services I never agreed to fund in the first place. Do you have any idea who we are? He sputtered. The damage you are doing to this family's reputation? Your family's reputation was damaged long before I came along, I said. It just took me too long to see it. I heard the phone being passed again, and then Elaine's cool voice. Lorraine, dear, let us be reasonable. We can discuss your feelings of exclusion another time. Right now, Cassandra's special day is being ruined. That is unfortunate, I replied, but not my problem anymore. I hung up the phone and returned to my packing. Less than 10 minutes later, there was a pounding on the door. I knew it would be James. Taking a deep breath, I opened it. He burst into the room, still wearing his tuxedo, though his tie was askew and his hair disheveled. His face was flushed with anger and what smelled like expensive whiskey. What the hell is wrong with you? He demanded. Do you know what you have done? Cassandra is hysterical. Half the guests are leaving because dinner is delayed. This is a nightmare. I regarded him calmly. Why did you use my money to pay for your sister's wedding without telling me the truth? My question seemed to catch him off guard. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing, but now recognized as a tell when he was about to lie. It was not like that, he began. We just needed to cover some unexpected costs, and I knew you would want to help. $40,000 worth of unexpected costs? I asked. That is almost everything I had saved before we were married. He had the decency to look slightly ashamed, but it passed quickly. We are married. What is yours is mine, right? Besides, you should be honored to contribute to a Turner family event. The casual entitlement in his voice confirmed everything I needed to know. I am leaving, James. My flight departs in 3 hours. You cannot leave, he exclaimed. What will people think? I do not care what they think anymore, I replied, zipping my suitcase closed. That was always your concern, not mine. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to what he probably thought was a reasonable tone. Look, I know Cassandra went too far today. She should not have said those things, but you know how important family is to me. Can we just get through this weekend, and then we can talk about everything, please? For a moment, I wavered. This was the James I knew, the one who could be charming and persuasive when he needed something from me. But then I remembered his smirk as his sister humiliated me, and my resolve hardened. I am done pretending, James. I am done trying to earn acceptance from people who decided long ago that I would never be good enough. And I am done with a husband who values his family's approval more than his wife's dignity. So that is it? He demanded, anger returning. You are just going to walk away from our marriage over one bad day? This is not about one day, I replied. This is about years of small cruelties and compromises. This is about you consistently choosing them over me. This is about the fact that you used my life savings to fund a wedding where I was not even considered worthy of a seat. His phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. He glanced at it and cursed. I have to get back. We will talk about this when I return. I will not be here, I reminded him, and there is nothing left to talk about unless you are ready to make some significant changes in how you treat me and how you allow your family to treat me. James looked torn, his gaze darting between me and the door. Even now, faced with the potential end of our marriage, he was more concerned with getting back to his sister's reception than resolving things with me. What do you want from me? He asked, sounding genuinely confused. I wanted a husband who would stand by me, I said simply. Who would defend me when I was attacked? Who would put our relationship first? I love you, he said, but the words sounded hollow. If this is love, I deserve better, I replied. We both do. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and left without another word, the door closing behind him with a quiet click that somehow seemed more final than a slam would have been. I called for a bellhop to help with my luggage, then took one last look around the beautiful room that had been the setting for the end of my marriage. I felt a complex mixture of grief and relief as I walked out, knowing that whatever happened next would be on my terms. The flight home was a blur. I sat in economy class, surrounded by vacationing families and honeymooning couples, feeling disconnected from their joy. While my body hurtled through the night sky toward the mainland, my mind remained in Hawaii, replaying the events of the day and trying to make sense of how my life had changed so dramatically in just a few hours. Our house felt cavernous and strange when I arrived home. James and I had purchased it a year into our marriage, a beautiful colonial in an upscale neighborhood that he had insisted we needed to maintain appearances. Now, walking through the quiet rooms alone, I realized how little of myself existed in this space. The furniture, the artwork, even the color scheme had been chosen to please James and impress his family and colleagues. I slept in the guest room that night, unable to face our marital bed. In the morning, I called my closest friend, Natalie, who rushed over as soon as she heard my voice breaking over the phone. "Oh my God," she gasped after I recounted everything. "I always knew James' family was snobbish, but this is beyond belief." "The worst part is that I should have seen it coming," I admitted. "There were so many signs." Natalie squeezed my hand. "Do not blame yourself. When you love someone, you want to believe the best about them." Over the next few days, James called and texted constantly. His messages evolved from anger to bargaining to something resembling remorse, though never a full acknowledgement of how deeply he had hurt me. "Please come back to Hawaii," one text read. "We can still salvage our vacation after the wedding mess." Another said, "I talked to Cassandra. She feels terrible and wants to apologize." And later, "My parents are asking about you. They realize they went too far." I did not respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on practical matters. I consulted a lawyer about my financial options and legal standing. I moved all my remaining funds to a new account at a different bank. I reached out to my boss to arrange working remotely for a week while I sorted things out. Friends emerged as my lifeline during this time. Not just Natalie, but others who had gradually fallen by the wayside during my marriage to James. I realized how I had slowly isolated myself, spending more time trying to fit into his world than maintaining my own. Rachel, my college roommate, drove 3 hours to spend a weekend with me. "I never liked him," she confessed as we shared a bottle of wine. "He always seemed to be molding you into someone else." "Why did you not say anything?" I asked. "I tried subtly," she replied, "but you were so in love, and I did not want to be that friend who criticizes your relationship." She sighed. "I should have been braver." A week after I returned home, James finally came back from Hawaii. I was in the kitchen when I heard his key in the lock. My heart raced, but I had prepared for this moment. He looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothes, so unlike his usually impeccable appearance. "Lorraine," he said, his voice rough, "thank God you are here. I was afraid you would be gone." "I am still here," I replied, "but things have changed." He nodded, dropping his luggage in the hallway and moving toward me. I stepped back, maintaining distance. "The rest of the wedding was a disaster," he said. "Half the vendors threatened to walk out. Dad had to pay triple to keep some of them." Cassandra cried through the entire reception. It was telling that his first concern was still the wedding, not our marriage. "I am sorry it was stressful for you," I said. "Not entirely, honestly. For me," he repeated incredulously. "It was stressful for everyone. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was to have my wife sabotage my sister's wedding?" And just like that, any doubt about my decision vanished. Even now, he could not see beyond his family's expectations and appearances. "I did not sabotage anything, James. I simply stopped funding an event where I was explicitly told I did not belong." He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Cassandra did not mean what she said. She was just stressed." "Yes, she did," I countered. "And you know it. The problem is not what she said. It is that her words finally revealed the truth that has been there all along. None of you ever thought I was good enough." "That is not fair," he protested. "Isn't it? Then why did you never truly stand up for me? Why did you use my money without being honest about where it was going? Why did you laugh when your sister humiliated me?" He had no answer, just as I expected. I have spoken with a lawyer, I continued, when his silence confirmed my thoughts. I am not trying to take anything that is not mine, but I want a fair separation. Separation, he repeated, looking genuinely shocked. You cannot be serious. You are throwing away our marriage over one bad day. This was never about one day, I replied. Hawaii just showed me what I have been refusing to see for years. We want different things, James. You want someone who fits seamlessly into your family's world. I want someone who values me for who I am. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I found a small apartment that I could afford on my own salary. I reestablished connections with friends and colleagues who had been pushed to the periphery during my marriage. I even started therapy to understand why I had accepted such treatment for so long. My therapist, Dr. Larson, helped me recognize patterns I had never seen before. You grew up believing you had to earn love through achievement and accommodation, she explained during one session. So when James and his family set impossible standards, you just tried harder instead of questioning whether their demands were reasonable. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into new projects, earning praise from clients and a promotion that both validated my skills and provided financial security. As I navigated the separation, James oscillated between attempts at reconciliation and bitter accusations. When charm failed to win me back, he tried guilt. When guilt did not work, he resorted to anger, claiming I had used him for his family connections and social standing. If anyone used anyone, it was you using me, I told him during one particularly heated phone call. For my money, for my emotional labor, for having someone to look down on so you could feel superior. His family made their own attempts at damage control. Elaine called once, her voice dripping with condescension disguised as concern. We just want what is best for James, she said, and for you, of course. What is best for me is no longer your concern, I replied before ending the call. William sent an email suggesting we discuss terms privately before involving attorneys, which my lawyer advised me to ignore completely. Even Cassandra reached out, sending an elaborate flower arrangement with a card that read, "Sorry for any misunderstanding." Not a real apology, just another attempt to rewrite history and absolve herself of responsibility. I donated the flowers to a local nursing home and did not respond. As months passed, I discovered parts of myself that had been submerged during my marriage. I took a cooking class, something James had discouraged because he preferred eating at trendy restaurants where he could be seen. I reconnected with my parents, who had always felt uncomfortable around James and his family, but had kept their concerns to themselves out of respect for my choices. We just wanted you to be happy, my mother said during their first visit to my new apartment, but I never saw you really smile around him the way you used to smile. 6 months after Hawaii, I felt like a different person, stronger, more confident, unwilling to compromise my self-worth for anyone's approval. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, with negotiations about property and assets ongoing, but civil. And then on a rainy Tuesday evening, James appeared at my apartment door unannounced. We need to talk, he said, looking more humble than I had ever seen him. Really talk. I have been doing some thinking, and I realize I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in, curious about what truth he had finally recognized. James stood awkwardly in my small living room, taking in the cozy furniture and personal touches that made the space unmistakably mine. Nothing expensive or showy, just items that brought me joy or comfort. He seemed unsure where to sit until I gestured toward the armchair while I took a spot on the sofa. You look good, he said softly. Happy. I am, I replied honestly. What did you want to talk about? He took a deep breath. First, I need to apologize properly. Not for what happened at the wedding, though, that too, but for everything leading up to it, for never truly standing up for you, for taking advantage of your generosity, for putting my family's approval above your feelings. The words seemed genuine, but I had learned to be cautious with James. What brought this on? Therapy, he admitted with a self-deprecating laugh. After you left, I was angry, then desperate, then just lost. A colleague suggested I talk to someone, and at first I went just to prove I was not the problem. He shook his head. That did not last long. My therapist saw through me pretty quickly. And what did you learn? I asked, curious despite myself. That I have spent my entire life trying to live up to impossible standards set by my parents, that I chose you partly because you were different from everyone in my world, But then I tried to change you because I was afraid of what my family would think. That I used you as a buffer between me and my family's expectations, letting you take the brunt of their disapproval, so I could feel like I was rebelling without actually standing up to them. His honesty surprised me. This was more insight than James had ever shown during our marriage. The thing is, he continued, I really did love you, Lorraine. I still do. But I did not know how to love you properly because I never really learned what healthy love looks like. He leaned forward, eyes earnest. I am not asking you to take me back. I know I destroyed your trust, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did wrong and I am trying to be better. I sat with his words, examining my feelings. There was a time when this speech would have been everything I wanted to hear, when I would have rushed back into his arms, believing everything could be fixed. But that time had passed. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. I appreciate your honesty, and I am glad you are working on yourself. But it is too late for us, he finished for me, a sad smile on his face. Yes, I confirmed gently. Too much has happened. I have changed too much. He nodded, looking down at his hands. I thought so, but I needed to try. You deserve to hear the truth at least once from me. What about your family? I asked. Have they changed too? James laughed without humor. That is another reason I wanted to talk to you. After everything settled down from the wedding disaster, I finally stood up to them, told them how their treatment of you was unacceptable, how they had been undermining our marriage from day one. How did that go? About as well as you would expect. Father threatened to cut me off financially. Mother cried and said I was breaking her heart. Cassandra called me a traitor. He shrugged. But for the first time in my life, I did not back down. I told them either they respect my choices and the people I care about, or they would not be part of my life. That must have been difficult, I acknowledged, genuinely impressed. Hardest thing I have ever done, he admitted, but also the most freeing, and now we are taking baby steps. They know I am serious. Cassandra even asked me to tell you she is truly sorry for what she said at the wedding. Not just sorry there were consequences, but sorry for being cruel. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but appreciating the gesture nonetheless. The funny thing is, James continued, after I stood up to them, the dynamic shifted. They still disapprove of a lot of my choices, but there is a new respect there, like they were just waiting all these years for me to show some backbone. Sometimes people treat us the way we allow them to, I said, thinking of my own journey. Exactly what my therapist says. James smiled ruefully. Anyway, I also wanted to let you know that I have withdrawn my objections to the financial settlement. Your lawyer should have the paperwork tomorrow. I am giving you the full $40,000 you spent on the wedding plus interest. You do not have to do that. Yes, I do. It was never my money to begin with. I took advantage of your trust, and I need to make that right. We talked for another hour, not about reconciliation, but about closure. For the first time since I had known him, James was speaking to me as an equal, not someone he needed to impress or manage or change. It was bittersweet to see this growth only after our relationship had ended. As he prepared to leave, he paused at the door. You know, I always thought happiness came from having the right status, the right connections, the right appearances. But you were happier in this tiny apartment in 6 months than I ever saw you in our big house over 3 years. Happiness comes from being valued for who you really are, I replied, not for who someone wants you to be. After James left, I sat in my living room reflecting on the long journey that had brought me to this point. The painful humiliation in Hawaii had been a blessing in disguise, forcing me to confront truths I had been avoiding and to reclaim my sense of self-worth. In the years since that fateful wedding, I had rebuilt my life on my terms. I had earned a significant promotion at work, started taking classes toward an MBA, and even begun dating again, though cautiously. More importantly, I had learned to trust my instincts and to require respect as a non-negotiable in all my relationships. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks after James's visit. I felt no sadness when I signed the papers, only a sense of completion, of a chapter closing so that new ones could begin. My mother called that evening. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Free, I answered truthfully, and grateful. Grateful? She asked, surprised. For what? For the lessons, for discovering my own strength, for learning that walking away from people who do not value you is not a failure, but an act of self-love. The greatest wisdom I gained from my experience with the Turners was this. True belonging does not come from changing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It comes from having the courage to be authentically yourself and surrounding yourself with people who love you for exactly who you are. I still think about that moment on the beach in Hawaii sometimes, when Cassandra's cruel words stripped away all my illusions. In that painful clarity, I found the catalyst for change I had needed all along. By trying to separate me from the family, she actually set me free. So, have you ever had to stand up for yourself when others treated you as less than? Did you stay or walk away? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Do not forget to share this video with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth. Thank you for listening, and remember, the most important approval you will ever need is your own.